Lesson 5, Section 1. In this presentation, we'll be covering a lot of stuff under nouns, adjectives, and pronouns. We'll be talking about declensions. We'll be introducing second declension neuter nouns. We'll be looking at neuter adjectives, the neuter definite article, neuter subjects in the plural, pronouns ego and se, and the possessive dative. In Greek, nouns can be classified according to the patterns of their endings. These patterns are called declensions. There are 3 declensions in Greek. The first declension features mostly feminine, though some important masculine nouns, and there are 5 basic variants. In the second declension, we find mostly masculine and neuter nouns, so there are some important feminine nouns, and we find 4 variants. In the third declension, we find a mix of genders, and we find numerous, I won't say innumerable, variants. We're going to focus on the second declension for a little while. And I mentioned that there are 4 variants, 4 basic types. We see masculine second declension nouns, neuter second declension nouns, what is called the contract declension, and what is called the adic declension. The first 2 are the most important. We've already covered masculine nouns like logos, so check that off the list. And today we will be introducing neuter nouns like doron. We're going to start with our declension for logos, ha, word, speech, reason. And we're going to start by removing the stem, log, and keeping all of the endings. We're going to be able to recycle a lot of these. In fact, the genitive and the dative in both the singular and the plural are going to be the same for neuter second declension nouns. We're going to look at the full declension of doron, ta, gift. And of course, the first thing we do is plug in the stem of this into all of the numbers and cases. So we get dor all throughout there. And we're finished in the genitive and the dative, but we have some more work to do when it comes to the other cases. Now, as we know, the lexical form of this word, that is the form of it we look this word up in the lexicon, is going to provide us with the singular nominative form of the word. So that's something we're going to plug into the singular nominative here. But in the neuter, it's kind of nice actually. We find the same form in not only the singular nominative and accusative, but also the vocative. So they're all going to be the same. And going forward, whenever the vocative is the same as the nominative, we're just going to gray it out. And you'll find that this is actually the basic way they do it in our grammar book. So for the plural nominative, it's the only thing we still have to account for. We simply plug in an alpha. And again, with neuter nouns, it actually goes for all declensions of neuter nouns. The nominative and the accusative are going to be the same in form. They're going to differ by number. Singular and plural are here different, but they're going to be the same in the cases within those, nominative and accusative. This is a good thing and a bad thing. There's ambiguity here that we haven't seen before. So when we see doron, for instance, we're not going to know whether it's nominative or accusative, singular, until we look more carefully at the context. So this is the full declension of second declension neuter nouns, doron. These are the endings. Now we're going to take these same endings and basically look at how these are reflected in adjective endings as well. So as we saw before, looking at sapos in the masculine, it had the same endings as second declension masculine noun like logos. The same is going to be true here in the neuter. The neuter forms of an adjective like this are going to have the same endings as the second declension noun that we just looked at. So all we're going to do is plug in our stem into all these parts, and we get the forms for neuter adjectives. Now, we're going to drop the nominative and accusative ending here. We're going to look next at the forms of the definite article in the neuter. And ta is the basic form of the definite article, the form in the singular nominative and accusative for the neuter gender. So we're going to plug that in both places. As always, with neuter nouns, neuter adjectives, neuter definite articles, the nominative and accusative are always going to be the same. And for all of the other cases, the other number, we are going to just plug in a tau, as we usually do for the forms of the definite article. So we can compare these with the forms of the definite article in the masculine, and we'll see actually that these are the only differences. That the definite article is going to be the same in form in both masculine and neuter, in the genitive and dative singular, as you see here, and the genitive and the dative plural. That's, again, helpful on the one hand, because we only have so many more forms to remember, and at the same time, there is some ambiguity, which can make things a little more difficult. So these are the forms of the neuter definite article. In Greek, when the subject of a verb is a neuter noun in the plural, we see something curious. That is when a neuter noun in the plural is doing the action of the verb. Let's look at a basic sentence using the noun we just learned. Pou este tadoron. Pou means where. Este means he, she, or it is. And tadoron is here in the nominative or accusative singular case. We can't really tell just by looking at it, but from context, we know that this is the subject. So, where is the gift? This is a very basic question. Now, if we change our subject to plural, we get Pou este tadora. Where is the gifts? We've just changed the noun, and obviously this is not good English, so we want to change is to are. But the form of the verb in Greek does not actually change. And the rule for this is plural neuter subjects like tadora, the gifts, usually take verbs in the singular. That is, the verbs that they're the subjects of remain in the singular form. This is very curious. I don't know of any other language where this happens. There are different explanations for why this is the case. Usually, probably the best explanation is neuter plural nouns are thought of as a single group of things. A single group of things. This extends even to a noun like teknon, for instance, which means child, usually one's own child. So ta tekna, the children, would actually get a verb in the singular. In English would sound something like the children is, or my children is, or something like that. Obviously we can't translate it that way. But this is an important principle. We're going to see it quite a bit beginning in this lesson. Pronouns. As you have already observed, Greek pronouns like ego, I, and se, you, have different forms in different cases, just like nouns, adjectives, etc. Ego and se also have sets of non-emphatic forms for the genitive, dative, and accusative. So they're going to have a set of emphatic forms and a set of non-emphatic forms. We're going to see both quite a bit. So this is the basic declension of ego, I, and these happen to be the emphatic forms. Anytime you see ego, it's going to be emphatic. Anytime you see emu, genitive, emoi, dative, or eme, in the accusative, these are going to be emphatic. Now, to get the non-emphatic forms, I'm getting ahead of myself. Note the mu there. Just like in English, we get me. This is one way to remember what you're looking at. We have a prominent mu throughout the declension of the word for I in Greek. Now, for the non-emphatic forms, first of all, we're going to drop our epsilon, and then we get mu, moi, me. The difference here, if you notice, is that there's no accent on any of these. These are what are known as enclitic forms. They have no accent of their own, and they do strange things to the accents of words that come before them. So these are the forms of ego, I, both the emphatic and the non-emphatic forms. Now, we're going to look at the forms for se, and we're going to plug in our se in the nominative singular, and we are going to drop our epsilons once again, and then substitute sigma for all of these moos, and again, non-emphatic forms are enclitic, and that's basically the declension. So very, very similar declensions. Ego, I, and se, you. Possessive dative. In addition to indicating an indirect object or instrument, by means of which something is done, for instance, the dative case can show possession. Este moi pillas. Moi, of course, we just learned, it's the unemphatic dative singular form of ego, I, so this is basically to or for me. Este moi pillas. Este, of course, means he, she, or it is. Pillas is a friend. There's no definite article, so we would, in most cases, translate this as a friend. And literally, this means something like, there is to me a friend, or there is for me a friend, something like that. But obviously, this is not idiomatic English, and in fact, it means something more like, I have a friend. And often we see a construction like this prior to something else. So, I have a friend who, for instance. We're not going to see that particular construction for a little while, but we are going to see this possessive dative beginning in this lesson, I believe. Este moi pillas. There is to me a friend. I have a friend. Now, for the forms we looked at today, you can look at pages 26 and 46, second declension neuter nouns, and pronouns ego and se. Thank you very much.